Welcome to Pub Talk, the unofficial official craft beer podcast of Oklahoma, where we're all about the three B's, beer buddies and bullshit. I'm Michael, and with me as always is a man who is excited for the chance to come to the city for a show with Skydance, Jeremy.
Hey, yo.
On today's show, we're back with another Spotlight episode. This time we've hit the road to OKC for a highly anticipated show with Jake from Skydance Brewing. As always, if you like what you hear today, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button wherever you're listening to us right now, and show us some love all over social media at Pub Talk Podcast. All right, let's get into it. So first off, thank you for having us out today.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
I want you to start these episodes with just an introduction, who you are, what you do here.
So my name is Jake, CEO, founder, brewer at Skydance Brewing Company here in Oklahoma City. I'm Iowa, Osage, and Oto, so I'm proud that we're OKC's first Native American craft brewery. We just got this new place open, and we're hoping that this is the new hot spot in downtown.
Right on.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can kind of start off with, how you came up with the name and kind of how you got started.
Yeah. So the name originally, so my Iowa tribe, which is the tribe I'm actually enrolled in, we're called the Gray Snow People. And so originally when I was homebrewing, homebrewers, we give our little garage breweries names, and it was Gray Snow Brewing at the time. And but then I just wanted I wanted something that was a little more Oklahoma as well, not just purely native, Mm-hmm. So we threw around a bunch of names at the time. My business partner at the time, Nick, who's now the president of the Red Earth Brewers, as we were throwing names around and stuff, we noticed that there was they were coming up with the name for the new park downtown. It's now Scissortail. And every time something in the downtown area they were looking for a name, they always threw around Skydance because of the Skydance Bridge. But in reality, the Skydance has a tie to the state bird, which is the Scissortail. And so that's the lazy circles in the sky, that's the Skydance. And so we thought, it's got a native feel to it. It's got Oklahoma City ties to it. Everywhere you go in Oklahoma is a license plate with a Scissortail on the back of it. So it sounded good, So that's how we came up with Skydance. As far as starting the brewery, man, it's just I've always had this desire to be an entrepreneur and have my own business. I've been brewing beer since I was a little kid with my dad. And in college, I started working at Coach's in Norman.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad worked for the city of Norman at the time. And him and all his buddies would come in, on their, when they got off work, happy hour, stuff like that. And they'd come into Coach's. And I'd get off work and I'd sit at the bar with my dad. And we'd look around and talk about how, it'd be cool to have a place like that. But we would do this or we would do that. And so for years, it was just a talk thing, just kind of, man, we'll do this one day. You think you've got forever, you think you're going to live to be 100. And so all years of just home brewing and talking about it. And then when my dad turned 56, right around 56, we realized he had MS and didn't know it his whole life. And usually when you get it at an older age, it hits you hard and fast. And so he ends up in a nursing home at the age of 56. And he was in that nursing home for 5 years. And then he was getting really bad, and I decided I was going to brew one of his recipes. So I found a book. We're moving all this stuff out of his old house, and I found this book. It's Charlie Papazian's book on home brewing. And I was like, oh, man, I've always heard about this book, and I started thumbing through it, and there's like a little list of ingredients that he'd written down on a piece of paper. He used to send me up to the homebrew shop with this list of stuff to get. And it was oatmeal stout. So I was like, man, I'm going to make this and bring it to him at the nursing home, one last beer for Dad. And so I did that and got kicked out of the nursing home that day because I brought beer in. And I was like, man, he's dying,
Right.
And so then I took some of that beer to our Red Earth meeting, our homebrew club meeting, and everybody's like, man, this is really good. There's a big competition in Dallas every year called Blue Bonnet, and you ought to send this beer to that. And I was like, okay, cool. I've never done competitions, And so I sent it off, and I don't know, a month later, I drive down there with a buddy of mine, and It's like I don't know if you guys have ever been. It's like a 3-day event. It's really cool. It's probably my favorite craft beer event. And so we get down there, but Saturday is the day they give out the awards. They have a big ceremony, but I had to leave that morning to go to Phoenix I was running my tribe's casino at the time. And so I had to leave to go to this gaming conference in Phoenix. And when I land, I've got all these voicemails on my phone. Oh, you won, you won. Everybody's screaming. And so my dad's beer won. And I'm all excited to take this medal back to the nursing home and give it to him. And then I get the cab, get to the hotel. My brother calls and says, Dad just passed away. And I was like, oh, shit, man. I was just kind of distraught. And I was like, man, I'm going to go sit at the bar, have a beer for Dad, work on getting a flight back to Oklahoma City. And I'm there with our tribal vice chairman and our CEO, and we're just talking and hanging out. And they're like, man, I remember you guys used to talk about how you and your dad are going to open a brewery one day. And I was like, yeah, I thought he was going to live to be 80 or 90 years old, and I'd do it when I'm a real adult, I think I was 35 at the time. And so then I realized, man, when I used to go see my dad in the nursing home and all these old people in there just waiting to die, and when he was taking a nap or whatever, I'd go visit these people out in the lobby area, and they're sitting there watching TV, and they'd tell me stories about, oh, I could have had a scholarship to play football, or my kids don't come visit me anymore because I don't have a good relationship with them, or there's all this regret. Like the nursing home's full of people with regret that didn't do the things in their life that they wanted to do. And so I thought about that when I was in Phoenix, and I was like, that's not going to be me, Like even my dad, his favorite saying was, one of these days, one of these days we'll do this, one of these days we'll do that. Next thing you know, you're in a nursing home. Yeah. And it scared the shit out of me. So I was like, I'm going to start a brewery. I'm going to do it. And an old story, I literally got a napkin out, and I was like, here's all the steps, I'm going to spend 2 years just home brewing in the garage, every weekend. I'm going to get these recipes that I know people will like, which hardly any of them I make anymore, because this is, almost 8 years ago. So I literally brewed every weekend in the garage with a buddy of mine. And then I was like, I'll spend a year putting together a good business plan. I might even go take some classes on, how to do that. That's back when I thought the business plan was the key to the whole thing, and then try to find the money, invest. I grew up poor, so where am I going to get the money for this, And but I told myself, you got to have a deadline. And I said, I was 35. I said, I'll have a brewery by the time I'm 40. And so I turned 40 in October of 2018, and then 3 weeks later at the Brewers Union, we brewed our first batch.
Awesome.
So we made it happen. So that's the long story of how we got here.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
No, I love the detail.
Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of being a native-owned brewery here in Oklahoma, and proudly displaying that in the branding and everything you do?
It's just all about representation, and a lot of things in the world, especially in this country, even Native Americans are either not well represented at all, or they're represented in the wrong way. Whether that's through a mascot or old stories that people got wrong, or just what people think about natives is usually wrong. And so, and it's usually thought of as history, Trail of Tears, horrible things, right? And there's a lot of younger natives now who are really hungry to prove that we're still here now, and we didn't just survive as people, but thriving, And so the tribes are, some of the biggest economic powers of the state, and I just want to be able to represent our people through entrepreneurship. Like I said earlier, I grew up poor, and I thought a CEO of a company was somebody on top of the Devon Tower with a suit and tie, that went to the best school and all that. And what I've learned now is it's somebody who's got a lot of passion and hunger and willing to work their ass off to live out their dreams. That's all it is. And so I want people to see that. And if I say we're just another brewery, and you look at me, you don't see native. And so if I didn't point that out, that I'm native, then we would just be another brewery with a guy with a beard that makes beer. And natives, especially young natives, would not see that there's somebody like them creating a business, an idea for a different kind of business that maybe a lot of natives thought was either not okay for them to do because of alcohol or whatever, right? And so being able to show other natives that this is something that they can do, they too can live their dreams. You know, I went from my remote control being a pair of pliers on a TV to having this place, you know, and they can do it too. And then the other part of it too is just educating people. And so when people come in, this past week's been amazing. We've been open, today's our 8th day. And when people come in and they look at the menu, they ask what's Fancy Dance mean, you know, some of the beer names, that creates conversation, and we get to educate people on the culture and the heritage. The artwork that's in here all has like either special meaning to us as a company or culturally. And so it just creates a lot of conversation. So it's an opportunity for us to educate and tell our story the way we want it told instead of what somebody else tells. And then, heck, you know, you walk into a OnQ or a Walmart and you see one Native American product on the shelves, and that's Skydance. And so I'm proud of that, and I'm proud that our people are represented on those shelves.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah. And that's actually a good segue into, you know, your beer's kind of been all over the state for a little while now. Let's talk about that process and how you managed to accomplish that without even being open yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been the Brewers Union. So most people listening to this know what the Brewers Union was all about. And it is a great opportunity for somebody to start, or it was a great opportunity for somebody to start and get their brand out, and while they're waiting to build their own place. But the thing about the Brewers Union was it's a 15-barrel system, so that's a lot of beer. Like, you know, for somebody who maybe works at Coop or Prairie or whatever, 15 barrels might seem like a, you know, really small brew system, but for a brand new brewery, it's a lot of beer. So your only way to move it is through distribution, and the location for the Brewers Union just wasn't the best, so the tap room was never really busy, and so you're not going to push a lot of beer out through there. And once we realized that our plan of being there for just a year was going to be way longer than that, I was like, man, we got to do an all-out push in distro and just try to get it out there. And it was an expensive marketing plan is what it was. I mean, we lost a lot of money in 2.5 years at the Brewers Union. But what it did, I think, was give this location a head start, because so many people, I mean, we built up our social media following over those 2.5 years. So many people have had our beer at beer festivals and events, or from OnQ, or any real craft beer bar or restaurant in the state has carried our beer. So when we opened, it was like we hit the ground running. And then this week, because of that, I think that's been a big reason why this week has just been insane.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about how and why you decided to open up in it's Automobile Alley.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Awesome.
So Automobile Alley, we're kind of creating our own little district too, called East Auto.
Okay.
A lot of the businesses over here, this side of the tracks kind of, and if it really, everybody thinks of Automobile Alley as just Broadway. And then this side is kind of just new to being developed. So we've created this little East Auto thing, and we're just trying to do a lot of co-marketing together, co-branding, and trying to get people over in this area. And it's really being developed great. You know, City and State is a new restaurant that just opened across the street over there. The Parlor's been open for a while. The building that the Parlor is in, that's the first building we actually ever looked at. We were going to move into that building, but they wanted us to take both floors, and it's just a lot of space. And so it was a little too big for us. And then we looked at Midtown, the north side of Midtown. We were going to buy a building over there, create a separate company, and then lease the building to Skydance. And then the landlord of this building, the guy that owns this building, really wanted a brewery in here to be the anchor of this whole project. He's got 4 suites here total. And I felt like the patio space, we weren't going to have a patio in the building we were going to buy. the patio space and then the parlor opening up, and we saw the traffic over there. We've got a big apartment complex right here next to us. And then there's several new corporations that have built big office buildings just a couple blocks away. Also if you come from the Deep Deuce district and that whole area where, there's a lot of people live in that neighborhood, if they're coming to Midtown, this is their way. They got to come right through here to get there. And so I just felt like the location is location. And location beat out owning your own building, basically, is what happened. And I think we got lucky. I think just this spot's really developing, and I think it's turned out to be the absolute best spot we could have chosen. So
awesome. Let's talk a little bit more about just like the size and some of the tap room features and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the building itself is a little over 7,000 square foot. Roughly 2,000 square foot of it is this tap room space, but we have this upstairs mezzanine that we've kind of given it like a cigar lounge feel up there. But having that second floor gives you more square footage. That just up there alone, we can seat anywhere from 30 comfortably to maybe a party of 40. So that's like having another tap room almost. And then in the back, we've got the 15-barrel brew house. We have 3 15-barrel tanks, 3 30-barrel tanks. They're all unitanks, so we ferment in the fermenters. We don't have any bright tanks. And then we have a 3.5-barrel Blickman system for a pilot system, and 2 small 3.5-barrel tanks that goes with that. So even though we've distributed all over the state, our number one focus is the tap room. That's obviously we got to make money to do all the things we want to do, and your margins are best in the tap room. And so having that 3.5-barrel system allows us to just have fun. We're doing 2 sours are in the tanks right now, which Skydance has not done yet. Not since I haven't done a sour since I homebrewed, and so we'll have 2 sours on tap that'll be just tap room only. But the pilot system it's a little bigger than a lot of people's pilot systems, but it allows us to also can out of those tanks, so we could run a small canning run of tap room only can release. So I think we've got a pretty good setup. We got alpha canning line set up in there. And then in here in the tap room, like I said, we're not completely done with the decor. We've got some other Native American artists that are working on some stuff that we'll put in here. This patio is really the key. Like, I knew the patio was going to be nice, but this past week has been the best patio weather. And there's been several times I've walked out, and the inside of the patio's got a little crowd, but the patio's just packed, but inside the tap room is just kind of half full. People will go out there, even if it's standing room only, they'll stand out there. So the patios turned out to be a huge key for us. So my fiance Bobby did all the decor, the furniture, a lot of that design, and she knocked it out of the park. She really kind of did a good job of creating a place that I would want to hang out at. And that's what I've been doing, hanging out here. I've been here every minute that we've been open, so has she.
Awesome. You mentioned Fancy Dance earlier. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you have on tap, how many taps, and any of your core beers, if you have any?
Yeah, so we're still getting caught up on brewing. Like, we left the Brewers Union in April, and we didn't start brewing here until, the 1st of September, end of August. So we had several months. There was a delay there that kind of threw us off. So we're still trying to get also caught up on just distro. And so like Fancy Dance, Res Dog, Mosquito Hog, our core beers that we sell the most of, we had to rush and get some of those out into the market. So we didn't get to open with our full lineup of one-offs and stuff. But we have 20 tap handles. One of them, we have a nitro tap. We don't do a lot of nitro beers, but we are working on our own line of coffee that we'll have. So across the street, a friend of mine owns a coffee roaster over there, and it's called Iote. And so we'll go over there, and we'll do a private label deal. We'll get to go over there and roast our own beans. we'll have those ready pretty soon, and we'll have it the cold brew on nitro tap here. So we open early. We open at 11 every day. Today, because of the game, we're opening at 10, and that will probably happen a lot during football season. And so being able to have beer mimosas and some cold brew coffee, I think will be nice for people to have. We'll sell the beans by the bag in here. And then some of those proceeds from the coffee beans are going to my tribe's eagle aviary up in Perkins, where we rescue eagles and then rehab them. And if they can never be released, we release them back to wherever they found them from. And then we've got three. So we've got several one-offs today. So we brewed Fancy Dance. The first time we brewed it on the new system, we're trying to dial in the new equipment, and we missed our gravity like real bad. Like instead of it being a 6.8% Fancy Dance, it was going to be 5%. And I was like, that's a pale ale. And so let's change up the hop recipe and do something else. So I called John Knight from Mint Apparel, and he does most of our design of anything, whether it's apparel or the can artwork, that kind of stuff. And I said, hey, here's what happened. I need an idea for a name and a label for a pale ale. And it's going to be a 5% ABV beer. And like 2 hours later, he sends me this picture of this artwork, this label for a beer called Chummy the Well. And I'm like, what in the hell is Chummy the Well? And he said, don't ask. I was like, okay. So everybody comes in, what's the story behind Chummy the Well? And I'm like, I don't know. You're going to have to ask John Knight, because I have no idea. But that's been just unbelievably popular since we opened. And it turned out to be really good. And it's unfortunate because I'll never be able to recreate that beer because it was by mistake, you know. And so we did another version that we split it up, some of it off into these two tanks. The two small tanks, because it was going to be Fancy Dance, it was going to go to distro, so we did a 30-barrel batch. So to have a 30 barrels of beer that you messed up was like panic time, you know?
Yeah.
And so we split 7 barrels of it off into those two small tanks. One of them we did a double dry hop, so we really ended up with like 2 barrels of beer out of that. But that was gone in no time, just that first weekend. And then the other one we put peach and mango, so we didn't have any fruit ready for it, so we walked over to Prairie, and they just gave us a bunch of boxes of fruit that we put in there, and that's been pretty popular. We've got Strawberry Moon, which is a strawberry blonde can, a new can release as well, and then the second version of Juice Wolves. So probably the first version of Juice Wolves was like the most popular beer we ever did. It's that beer. So we had started doing these one-offs, which we should have done from the beginning at the Brewers Union. We should have been doing, during the pandemic, I think Stone Cloud killed it by having one-off can releases all the time. So they still did really well during the pandemic. And I saw that, and you're seeing it around the country now. It used to be like, come out with a new taproom only beer once a month. Now, like, you've got to have new beers all the time.
Yeah. And
so we started doing as best we could at the Brewers Union. It wasn't possible to do one every week, but we started doing these one-off releases, and I started doing what I want to do, which is IPAs. Like I tried in the beginning, we tried to do something for everybody, have a beer for everybody, but people want you to do what you are good at, what you like, and what you want to do. So I was like, I'm going to brew a shitload of IPAs and try to be the best IPA brewery in Oklahoma. And so we started doing those. And then Juice Wolves, man, when we did the first one, it was sold to accounts. Every bit of it was sold before we even sent it to the distributor. And so that was really popular. And now we got version 2, and it's a strawberry milkshake IPA. And that's been the most popular beer in here this week since we opened. And I don't know, we've probably just in draft only, I think we've gone through roughly 5 barrels of it just in kegs. So those are kind of the highlights. We do full blood on a regular basis, and that'll always just be taproom only draft. It's basically Fancy Dance with a whole crap load of blood orange. And then we ran out last night, but last year we did a collaboration with JB, the rapper. And he loved Fancy Dance. He's like, man, Fancy Dance with pineapple would be great, you know. So we did a pineapple deal. So we brought that back last week and had that on tap. That went real fast. So yeah, that's kind of the lineup right now. We've got coming up though, like I said, we've got another one-off. We have several one-off IPAs coming, and then the sours, and then of course some stouts. So
It's awesome to hear because we've talked about on the show about how good your IPAs are.
Yeah, I appreciate
they're up
that.
there
Yeah.
for sure.
Appreciate it.
So you obviously mentioned you like IPAs. Is that, well, phrase that a different way. Do you remember your first craft beer and your epiphany craft beer? I'm
Yeah,
guessing it was an IPA.
absolutely. So obviously, I mean, my first craft beer would have been like my dad's beers. And then when I was helping him, we did brew that oatmeal stout, but he really liked brewing like German beers, especially like darker lagers and stuff, you know. And so like if he was sitting around the house drinking something other than his beer, it was, you know, some of those imports that obviously weren't as good as what, you know, you could have gotten over there. But and so that was probably my first craft beers. But once I really became a huge craft beer fan was when I was working at Coach's, and Mike Gershong from Broke was the brewer there at the time, and that's when we became really good friends. And I would work I started out bartending there, and all these guys across a block over from Coach's is the post office, and all these postal workers would come over when they got off work, and it was a regular crowd every day. Every day they were in there. It's a big group. And they were all drinking this Coach's IPA. And at the time, I'd never had anything like that bitter. You know, it was a West Coast IPA. And I would taste it, and I was like, man, it just tastes like dishwater. You know? And they were like, oh, no, this is the best beer. This is the best beer. And one of them talked me into, he said, when you get off work, go over there and shoot some pool, grab you a growler full of IPA and force it down your throat. Like, just drink it. So I did that, and then I went back and got another one, and I was like, holy shit, man, I love IPA now. You know, nice. Once you get past the bitterness, you know, and it's like the citrusy and you know that stuff, and so that was kind of like that. That's what happened, and so the next day I was drinking it again, and a guy that I worked with in there was like, man, you really like that IPA, huh? He's like, and I was like, oh yeah, I love it. And he goes, man, we were going to a party that night. He goes, I got some beer for you tonight at this party. And so I go to that party, and he shows up with I guess they came in 6-packs, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and then the Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. So I had the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. I was like, oh man, that's pretty good. And for years, dude, I drank that like all the time. But then that Celebration Ale, I was like, holy crap, dude, this is like incredible. And so that's when I just became an IPA guy right then and there.
Wow. We said, holy shit, you liked IPAs, so I think that's a good transition to, we ask everybody if they remember their holy shit moment, that time when you just stood back and said, holy shit, this is happening. For you, might be a couple of things you opened up in the Brewers Union and here, but does anything come to mind?
Yeah, you know, like, it's hard to really say that I ever had that moment at the Brewers Union. I mean, obviously, the first time we ever served our beer at the Brewers Union, and like I do remember brewing the first batch, and like everybody had left, and I was back in the brewery, and the beer was fermenting and it's kind of bubbling away, and I got a little teary-eyed because you know my dad wasn't there for it. So and then like you know, Tom Chalice was the first person to come in and order a Skydance beer, you know, and I'll always remember that because it was just like the first time somebody actually handed over money for something I made, you know, and it's like, it's exciting, and then you also feel nervous about that and kind of like a responsibility, you know. But I think 2 nights ago was my oh shit moment because Saturday was insane, dude, like, grand opening, we had a line. We opened at 11. There was people waiting outside. We had a line from the bar here all the way to the back of the patio, and that line never stopped until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And then even after that, until close, there was just a line in here. and so that was kind of crazy. But then, like, I always knew grand openings are crazy, you know, whatever. Then Sunday was crazy. And then every night since, we've had a packed house. We had people in here on a Tuesday at lunch. Like, we open at 11. There's a guy standing outside at 10:30 waiting for us to unlock the door. And so then the other night, Thursday night, I've got a buddy. He's an Oklahoma City police officer named Sean Profit, and he's a great musician, just really good musician. And so we've had him a lot at the Brewers Union, and we had him here opening day. And now we have him out here every Thursday night for acoustic night. And he set up out there Thursday night, and the weather was perfect. Huge crowd on the patio. It was just packed. There was another line out the door. And I was sitting on the table out there with Bobby and just looking around. First time that really that we weren't actually sitting down working on something, drinking a beer. And I looked at it and I said, holy shit, man, I think we did something really cool. I think we've created something really neat. And that was probably it, man. Like, that was the moment I was like, I went from, man, this better work, to, I think this is really going to work. So that was probably it.
Right on.
Nice. Something that's been cool to watch as you've gone through this whole process is you've done just a great job of documenting it via, YouTube and different videos, podcasts, and things like that. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so coming from the casino business, like, I've always seen the power of marketing. Mainly, like, as natives, man, we're storytellers, That's how we pass along our culture to our kids, and so I just always wanted to tell the story. A lot of it too was like, when I die, and if somehow I end up in heaven or whatever they call it, and Dad's there, and I'm going to tell him the story of what happened. What's that story going to be? And I think other people are interested in seeing the story. People, every time we're at the Brewers Union, people are always asking, like, we go to a festival, number one question, when are you opening? Where are you going to open? Where, all that stuff. And so people are hungry for that kind of stuff. And so video to me is powerful. And so I just decided we should do this vlog. And I've done it half as often as I wanted to. We've been so busy, it's hard to do it, I need to get back to it, because I don't want it to just stop at we opened. I want it to keep going. I want people to. I feel like craft beer has gone so local, and I feel like people want a connection with the brewers and the owners and the brand, right? Some of my friends that run casinos have tried to start these little breweries in some of these casinos, and what they've done is they've either brought a murderer from Texas to come up and do it and start a brewery in the casino, or they've done like these little instant beer things with the powder thing, and I've tried to talk them all out of doing it. And the reason is that they're not doing something that allows people to have a connection to them. There's no brand loyalty in craft beer, and there shouldn't be. Everybody wants to try different things, but there's no connection between the customer and the owners and the brewers. And so I think through the video, that allows us to connect with people. We want people to know who we are. We want them to know who they're buying beer from, what we're about. And so that's that deal. The podcast is more of an entrepreneurship business podcast, and that goes back to my purpose of like having young natives see that somebody like them is creating a business. And I can remember when I was in that stage of like the business plan and all that stuff. So my buddy that has Eote Coffee and some other people I know that own businesses, I'd go talk to them, and I'd be like, how do you do this, or how do you incorporate, or how do you do an LLC, how do you do a business plan? And we'd have all these great conversations. And then I was also hooked on podcasts that taught like how people's stories and how they created a business. And so as I'm having those conversations, I was like, man, people should hear these conversations. Like, they should be a part of that. And so I was like, I'll just start doing the same thing and tell my story. And then somebody wants to start a business, maybe they'll see it and hear it, and it helps them. So let the train go by.
How does that sound on that?
It's pretty loud.
Yeah.
It's happened to Twisted Spike and a couple others.
Yeah. Luckily, they're not allowed to do the horn through here.
Right on.
But when the front of that train goes by, it's loud.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. How many do you think you're going to put down during the game?
You know what? I've caught myself, all the hours I've been here, I've caught myself not drinking hardly any beer. Today may be different, dude.
I was thinking it would be.
Man, I'm worried about today, not because I think OU might lose, but like, you don't want to know me during an OU game, like a big OU game. Like, people I've had people literally leave my house at halftime because I get a little out of control. I was good last week, but it's OU Texas, man. So, but dude, I don't honestly, man. The last year and a half or whatever, I don't drink near as much beer as I used to. I've become a bourbon guy. I drink bourbon if I'm drinking one night, it's normally bourbon, especially if I'm smoking a cigar or something. But yeah, I'll probably put down several. It depends on how the staff is doing. Yeah, well, and the staff, like if it gets crazy, I'm sure we've got a few things to try to figure out today. We got a DJ coming, so the goal is to have him play during the timeouts, and we're still trying to work out this volume situation on our speakers for the game, and so it's got to turn that down. And I thought I had a little remote that was going to work, and it doesn't, so I might have to sit up there next to the still. Okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, I just know, and anytime because I'm an OSU guy, I don't really care about the outcome, but I've attended parties, and it's always a show.
Yeah. That's why I wish the game would have been at 2:30. Yeah. Because I do worry a little bit about later in the afternoon and the evening how people get. So the staff will really get tested today about making sure they're responsible and keeping the crowd under control and stuff. So we'll have a taco truck here, so hopefully some people are eating. Yeah. If it gets too bad, I might run over next door and go get a bunch of pizzas and just throw it out there. But we also have the Amber Ale with coffee in it, so maybe they should drink that.
There you go. That's
awesome. And that's awesome too.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Where are we at? So you've talked a couple times about festivals. Do you have any favorites that you have attended, or any maybe that you're looking forward to coming back?
They're all great. I think we always have a great time at Zoo Brew. Zoo Brew is hard to set up for because it's all scattered around, but Zoo Brew is one of my favorites. And then, I mean, who doesn't like Hop Jam, dude? Like, hopefully we'll have that this spring. For us, it was tough. The only thing about Hop Jam was Oklahoma Craft Beer Festival was always the day before. And for the breweries, man, that is it makes for a long weekend, especially when, I want to say Oklahoma Craft Beer Festival was a 2-day deal. So it would be Friday night, then 2 sessions on Saturday. Then you load up and you head to Tulsa, and you set up in Tulsa the next morning. I mean, even before the Hop Jam even started, you're just exhausted, you know. But that was back when it was just mom and pop brewery, you know. It was just us, and like when Nick was still on board, and it was really just 4 of us, you know. So we were exhausted. Now we're building a staff, and we'll have a better system to split that up. But Hop Jam's legit, dude. Like,
for sure.
That's probably, if people from out of state come in and they're like asking about events and festivals, I always tell them about Hop Jam. That's just insane. Yeah.
As a single tear rolls down my face. Canceled 2 years in a row.
I know. Yeah. Hopefully we're getting to the end of this stuff, or heading in that direction. We thought that before.
Right. Yeah. Can you talk to us about weekly events or any special events you've got coming up that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so it's crazy. We were talking before we opened. It was like we were so focused on grand open that we were all of a sudden like, well, wait a minute. Then there's the next day, and what are we going to do the next weekend and the next weekend? And so obviously today we've got the big OU Texas game, so we're making an event out of that. We're doing some giveaways and stuff, but the only thing we have for certain that we is that every Thursday night's going to be the acoustic night out there. Either next week or the week after, we'll start having a regular trivia night. But everybody around here does it, so we're trying to make it to where it's not the same nights. So we're working on different things. We're trying to also figure out some tasteful ways of putting some Native American culture into some of the events. I've got some guys that want to bring the drum out and put on a show and stuff like that. We're talking to a guy we know is a Chickasaw artist who does live art. So we'll probably do some stuff with him. But we'll eventually, over the next couple of weeks, after we kind of get caught up and kind of get in a rhythm, we'll we'll definitely have like events on a regular basis as far as the weekly stuff, you know. And then, like I said, once we get caught up on production, it's our goal is to have a can release every weekend, you know. So it might just be, some of them might just be taproom only, and then some of them may go to distro. So we'll see. The distributor is not a big fan of the weekly releases. It's a lot for them to keep up with. So. But we're going to do it. So.
What about food options?
Yeah.
What do you have going there?
Yeah, obviously, you know, food trucks. And we've got the parlor next door, or across the street. Next door in the building over here is designed to be a restaurant. And so we're working with our landlord on kind of getting the right fit. The POS system we have allows us to put a printer in their place to where you could sit here. This is the plan, as long as we can work it out with the restaurant. But the goal is for you to be able to sit here, order your beer and food, and it'll all be on the same tab. And we bring it over, and so it'd be, for the customer, it'd be seamless. Like, it'd be just like we have a restaurant here. So that's our goal for that. We also, our landlord is good friends with the state legislature, and some people don't know this, but a law got passed by these guys over the summer to allow for a shared patio space. And so previously, if you were having cocktails at the next door restaurant, you couldn't bring it over to the brewery's patio, but now you can. As long as that whole patio enables plans as a shared patio space, which is what we have here. And so technically, our patio is just what you see in the gravel there, and then over there is a restaurant space that'll have like a enclosed, screened-in patio and a little bit of a concrete patio. But you'll be able to get your food, and you like beer, you like cocktails, you can both sit on the patio and have both, you know, do whatever. You just can't bring the cocktail inside. But so that'll be, once that really gets going. But you know how long it takes for a restaurant to get in and get built and get going. So we're talking next year, you know. So in the meantime, it's food trucks as often as possible. A lot of people walk across the street to the parlor and bring the pizza over or whatever, and they bring it in. So that's, hopefully we can keep the food trucks going until the restaurant opens. But food trucks are leery of breweries, man. They just, for whatever reason, they don't always do so well at breweries. But we've been lucky so far to get several of them. On the Thursday night music, the acoustic night, we've got Callahan's hot dogs will be here every Thursday. I don't know if you've had that guy's hot dogs, but they're great. They're the best. So
I guess let's kind of, as we wrap up, remind everybody of the location, and if you've got any final thoughts.
Yeah, so 1 Northeast 7th Street. We're technically Suite A, but come to 1 Northeast 7th Street, you won't miss us. So it's Automobile Alley. We're just east of Broadway, just off the interstate as well. We're easy to get to. Yeah, that's so that's where we're at. We talked earlier before you guys, or when you guys first got here. We've got parking. We've got good parking over here, our own parking lot. We've got a little bit of parking right here in the front of the building. So that's kind of a rarity for downtown. The other thing is our goal is to be the first brewery open and the last brewery closed. So during the week, Sunday through Thursday, we open at 11 in the morning and we close at 10. And then on Friday and Saturday, we open at 11, we close at midnight. So you're looking for a beer downtown, we're going to be open. So other than that, I mean, just people follow that social media, because we're going to put out a whole shitload of one-off IPAs, and that's hopefully a year from now, you guys are back in here and we're talking about all these badass IPAs we put out. And so that's where you'll find out about them, is on social media.
Awesome.
We need to mark our calendars for a year from now.
Yep. another yearly.
Yeah, another yearly one.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Well, thanks again for having us out. A long time in the making.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I thank you guys coming out, and I think what you guys are doing is pretty awesome, man. So especially we're putting light on the craft beer industry, and heck, I find out about new breweries just by listening to you guys all the time. Nice. So I think it's really cool. So we say aho. So thank you.
Thank you.
And cheers to opening.
Yeah, cheers.
That's going to do it for another episode of Pub Talk. Congrats
to Skydance for finally getting their tap room open. And thanks again for having us out today. Make sure to follow them on the social media at Skydance Brewing. And make sure to give us a follow at Pub Talk Podcast. And as always, never forget there's nothing in life too big or hard you can't handle it over a few beers with your good friends. Until next time, just chill till the next episode.